Hi everybody, it's Jimmy and welcome back to Jimmy Does Knitting. This is my knitting podcast where we usually pick a topic and we go from there. Today's topic is sweaters for fall. I have been casting on and I'm going to cast on a bunch of stuff, so I'm very excited to talk to you about that. I'm going to try to make this episode quick, but I have some exciting things that I want to talk to you about, so let's see. Before that, you can catch me as Jimmy Does Knitting on Instagram, Ravelry. I have patterns for sale, and you can also find out things like this sweater. I am on Ko-Fi. I just opened a TikTok. Most of my stuff's on Instagram. I think that's it. I don't know. Let's get into it. I'm just going to go straight into it. As you can see, I look really beautiful. I'm trying new things with my hair. I did a workout this morning and I just took a shower and I put some salt spray in my hair. I guess I'm trying to grow out my curls. We'll see how this goes. But I'm wearing my Prada sweater. So I've talked about this ad nauseum on social media, on this podcast, everywhere, all of the things. It turned out fantastic. I was in a fight with it for a bit. What I did is I knit up to about here, and then my math got wonky, and the sleeves were crazy, and so the collar was down to about here, and I had to rip out intarsia and redo both of the sleeves, and I nearly quit. And I also didn't like this color placement right here. Now I think it's fine. I realized after I was done and I was weighing all the yarn and stuff like that, that this actually was supposed to be a bluer color, and I grabbed the wrong one in the night light. So started planning in January. I think I finally cast on in March, and it's late August and this thing is done. So it was a labor of love. It was a ton of work. It was crazy. But I'm so happy I did this. I've been wanting to knit this since I started knitting in 2021. And this is Prada 2017 autumn winter, and it's just fantastic. So yes, I'm very happy about this. The chart is on Ravelry for free. This is not an exact dupe of the one because it is a different gauge and of course different colors. I went to my friends at West Wool and they supplied me with this yarn. I asked for the greens and the blues with like a pop of purple, and they gave it to me. So thank you, West Wool, for making this dream come true. Hi, Steven. I don't know if you watch. I'm pretending Steven West watches. So that's happening. This is done in their tandem, which is Folclore Merino. It's great. A couple things that people have been asking me. How do you know this hasn't grown? Because it's seamed to heck. One, I have metro stitched all of the seams. So there's a raglan, so there's seams here and then down the side and under the arm. And also the insides are essentially all seams. So every time you change a color, there is a twist, which gives it a little bit of stability, but also that's the point in which you weave in most of your ends. So that makes it more solid. This thing's not really going anywhere. I blocked it in pieces. That was another thing, is when you knit flat, you block in pieces. That is because when things block, they change. This didn't change a whole lot, but it relaxed some and it evened out with my rowing out. And then if I were to seam this up beforehand and then block, the seams would be tighter than the fabric most likely, and so it would have like weird bunches on the seams, and that's not what we want. We want something like this, which is flat and quite nice. So if you want to know more about this, I have published a video already about this Prada sweater, and you can go through and see the whole process. It was an emotional roller coaster, but yeah, or you can check out my Instagram. I have a ton of stuff about it on Instagram, but I think that's all I'm going to say about this now, and we will get into some other stuff. One thing I would like to tell you is that I have chapters in all of my videos. So if you don't like a project that I'm talking about, you can skip and you can see what the next chapter is. If you are with younger ones, I'm having a chapter called Stinky. If you are easily offended or you have children, maybe skip the Stinky chapter. It's not like naughty. It's naughty, but it's not offensive, let's say. So this is your warning. Skip the Stinky chapter, go on to the next one, and we'll be fine. But if you're daring and bold and a bit messy, come with me into this adventure of things and stuff and whatever. This is what's going to happen. So I wanted a sweater that said Stinky Hose on it. I've wanted this for a while, and I am at the point where I've decided to make it. Why would it say Stinky Hose? I worked on this project in Greece, which was, it was a whole thing. It was a mess. It was just one of the worst. I've had worse jobs, but it was a terrible job. And so after like a rough week, I went from the office of these awful people to the airport in Athens, and then this like random, like there's like a gas station and like nothing around it, and there was a rock, and on the rock was graffiti that said Stinky Hose. And this is like 2020, 2021. I still think about the Stinky Hose rock. I regularly think about the Stinky Hose rock. My boyfriend got me t-shirts that said Stinky Hose on them. I love them. I wear them all the time, and now it's time to have a sweater. So I'm making a Stinky Hose sweater. And I've forgotten a couple things, so I will be right back. What I did is, first I decided on a sweater shape. I was going to use my polar hoodie, but I ultimately decided against that. And what I did decide on was my Metaphysics sweater's shape. This is an exaggerated drop shoulder. You can tell by the pattern that it sort of like leans out, so that allows for like less bunching under the armpit, and it can really make for like a really nice oversized fit. This pattern is out now. At the time I'm recording this, it's not, but I think by the time this is up, this pattern will be out. This is a size inclusive pattern. It's gender neutral. It's graded to 10 sizes. It is using intarsia. I knit this in Knitting for Olive merino, heavy merino, in coal and rust. The Intestors have some really good versions of this. Go check out the Ravelry page. They have some like really incredible colors. It's worsted weight, it's pretty simple, and it's like a bog standard, intarsia pattern. So there are two reasons why I did this. One, I like the sweater shape, and two, because I wanted something that I know that I could knit flat easily, because what I wanted was Stinky Hose across the chest, and that would mean that I'd have to do a combination of intarsia and stranded color work. And so that's what I did, and I knew that this pattern worked. It was like super easy drop shoulder, so we went for that for the shape. Next, color. I knew that I wanted purple. I was thinking a cobalt blue, like, let's show on the sweater. I was thinking something like this and this as the sweater, with the blue being the main. But I had an epiphany, and I wanted to try to use some stash, which never really happened, but this is where we're going. So I decided that I wanted this, like a purple, and then like I have this fluff from Blue Sky Fibers, and it's like an obnoxious yellow, and so I was going to use that. When I put it together, I didn't like the fluff color. I thought it was a little too dull. So, but what I did is I ordered so much yarn. I ordered enough yarn to make the sweater. This is pure Gint. I'd never tried it before, but I figured this is a DK weight. I wanted it in DK weight, and I wanted it purple. So I did this, but as you can see, it's still in the pack because it was a bit too like dusty purple, and I wanted it to be like bratty, but like also demure, but like unicorny and like somewhat femme. So this just was too old lady. So that got chucked, and I went to Stephen and Penelope, and this time I paid for the yarn, and I got this purple. Was it on sale for 25% 2 days after I bought it? Yes. Had I already knit through a bunch of it? Also yes. So we started the Stinky Hose sweater. There's one ball attached, so let's go through it. I am using 2 colors of Wool Tandem. This is Stash, this is Pickle Juice, and then this is their unicorn color. It's a DK weight yarn, 22 stitches and 28 rows for 10 centimeters, 4 inches, 100 grams, 233 meters, 254 yards. So this is what I used for Stinky Hose and for this one actually. So that is that. And I started knitting. I knit the back flat and then knit the front flat, and then I couldn't be bothered. Theoretically, you're supposed to knit all pieces flat if you're knitting flat, but I didn't want to, and it's my sweater, and I'm not going to get a tremendous amount of wear out of it because I can't wear it a bunch of places. So I decided to do the sleeves and around. But let's look at it. This is what I'm doing. Oh, sorry, yarn management. So this is the same shape as my other one, and I love it. It's obnoxious. I wanted the writing to just be like rancid. I just wanted it to be like contrasty and like bleh. So that's what I did. I also made this very oversized. I think this is like 38-inch chest circumference, and I think this is like 44. So this is going to be really big on me. Perfect, fine. It's exactly what I wanted. So that is what I did. To make it not boring, because I find stockinette quite boring. I can go through it super fast, but I find it boring. So I did some things to entertain myself with this one. One, I did a twisted rib with a twisted tubular cast on. I didn't follow a tutorial for this. I just sort of did whatever. But I did that for like 4 inches, so it was a really long rib. Roxanne Richardson has since come out with a twisted rib cast on, which I think looks a little better than what I did. But this is what we're going with. I also did this thing with the double knit collar into this. Now, I did that on this too. It's popular now. I think it looks okay. I'm not sure it's worth it. It took like a full night to do this color, and I'm not somebody who will spend a full night to do a color. It can take me a lot less time. This one I thought was a little loose. I used the same needles for the pickup as I did for the ribbing. This one I did it something different. I did all of this on 3.5 millimeter needles, and then but like for the collar pickup I did it on a 3 millimeter. I did the double knitting rows, and then I switched to the 3.5 for the twisted rib, and I did an Italian bind off, which is my preference. And then I sewed, well, I knit front back, sewed the arms together on the top, added the collar, and then we have sleeves. And this is a significantly wider sleeve than my Metaphysics sweater. Actually, it might be a little too wide for me, but we'll see. But I did that, and I did about roughly the same amount of ribbing for the arms. And so this is just going to be oversized, comfortable, obnoxious, that sort of thing. Now, one other thing that I did while I was trying to entertain myself. Oh, I'm almost done. I'm on the ribbing for this cuff. I could have finished last night, but I was like, I need to give you some content. So that's why we're filming now. And this will be definitely a finished object for the next one. So these are my floats. As you can see, it's intarsia in the fact that there's like a blob in the middle of a sea of purple. So that is what that is. But if we look closer, is this the pretty side? One side is prettier than the other. This is the prettier side. We'll look at this one. If we look closer, you can see how my floats are kind of funny. See how they like zig and zag a little bit? When a typical float looks like this. So this is my enigmatic sweater. This was done with Chaos yarn, which is a fantastic yarn. Their colors are wonderful. This is their organic merino. This is a fingering weight sweater. It is one of my favorite sweaters. I think this is the sweater that got me to consider wearing color more. But if we look at the inside of this, you see how the floats are parallel to each other? Ooh, big row of rowing out. But like the floats are parallel to each other. You can see it on the sleeve. You can see it here. But these floats are all wibbly wobbly. And this is something I did to keep myself entertained. When I didn't want to do like full intarsia where I switch bobbins every time like there was a space of color in the lettering, I wasn't there. But I wanted to do color work in a way where I didn't have to switch needles because typically you size up when you do intarsia, when you do color work, because your tension gets a bit tighter, and I didn't want the backs showing through. So a lot of times you catch a float. There are some really long floats here. You can see that. A lot of times you catch a float, but because the color contrast was so strong, I didn't want it poking through on the purple, so you have like a little blip. I thought that that was not what I wanted. So with all that being said, I decided to go old school with this, and I did twisted, stranded color work. It's sometimes called Armenian knitting, sometimes called Latvian knitting. It's whatever. You can do it in the round, you can do it flat. But essentially what you do is when you knit, I knit with, you can do this holding the yarns in, like, I typically do it with two colors on my left hand. Some people do the, the one and the other. What I did with this is I picked up one color, worked with it, dropped it, picked up the other color from below, and then worked it, dropped it, picked up the other color from below. And so that adds a little bit of like a twist to it, which I thought would be good for the intarsia, but it also makes the colorwork floats a little bit more secure. And I can control the tension on this a little bit better, meaning that the floats are more appropriate using the same needle without having to like go up. Because I know that if I were to do this with just one, like how I normally do it, it would have been super tight, and I didn't want that. So that is what I did with this color work, and what it does is it twists everything. So you can do this in the round, you can do it flat. The advantage of doing this flat is you twist the yarns, and you have this like blob by the end of the row, but because you're doing it flat and you're purling, and it doesn't really feel like purling in color work because you just like work one yarn at a time, it untwists on the way back. So it was, I don't know, this is what I do to keep myself entertained. It's a new technique that I haven't used, and I liked it. So I thought it was fine. And what it does is we talk about color dominance a lot with knitting, and this makes it so there's not really a color dominance because you're always pulling the yarn from the same part. One is not in front of the other at all times. Usually you use the most dominant yarn in the front of your knitting or in your left hand, I think, if you're doing the two-handed. Not the case with this. It's just, not color dominant in any way. It's just some twisted. So this, I have really bad rowing on this. I don't know why, but like, so it needs to relax. It needs a block. And this will, I'll finish this by the end of the week, if not the weekend. So that was a little thing. And the color work kept me entertained during all of this stockinette. And it's fine. I really like this. I'm excited to be wearing it. It will be a good sweater. So what I am doing about this is like blocking intarsia flat. Because I knit this in pieces, I thought, this is not like so much of a seam in terms of the arm cast on. It is some, but it will flex with the knitting. But I'm leaving the sides open for now. And then after blocking, I'll go through and I'll sew up the sides with just some leftover yarn. So the sides will be mattress stitched together. The sleeves are knit top down. It's just easier that way. Is it probably the best way to construct this, especially since, there's a seam right here on the top of the drop shoulder? Probably not. But am I doing it anyway? Yeah, I think this is it. So that is what's happening with that. I'm very excited about it. I think it's a fun knit. Sometimes you have to use your powers for mischief and not, whatever. I really sometimes struggle to find a place in the knitting community because it's very like earthy, crunchy, like this is my slow hobby and blah, 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 blah. And that's just not me. I have like two sides. I have one is like this side and this side where it's just like color and pop and fun and like, like grungy, and you can really get like, cool with it. And then I have the Guernsey knitting side, which is going to be next. So yeah, I just think it's fun to play with your knitting and try something new. I forget how fast stockinette knits up. Like I'm a fast knitter in general. I also spend a tremendous amount of time knitting per day, especially recently. Like work has been slow in August because it's grew up in August and nobody wants to work. So I've been cranking out. I was able to crank this out. I, had some forced downtime and I like cranked this out. This is, probably gonna be a couple of weeks of work, if that. And yeah, it will go fast. So that is that. That's about all I have to say about that. I also just like, I'm not going to celebrate stockinette projects so much. Even my own like really simple knits, I don't feel the need to really talk about all the Troy Boy hats that I made or some other things. So I don't know. I mean, like this is enough to keep it exciting because I tried some new techniques, I played around, but overall it's a fairly boring standard knit. Like all these other stuff where everybody knits the same pattern and it's all stockinette, I'm like really just not interested. I don't even really particularly care what people have to say about it, especially socks. It really just bores me. Just like a self-striping sock or like another, petite knit pattern where it's like, it was like, they're so different. It's just a plain stockinette. I mean, like, it's fine. It's nice. It's a good basic. I'm sure it fits well and it keeps you stimulated, but like, is this what our community is really celebrating? Or can we like, I don't know, uplift other voices? Food for thought. Anyway, that is my preaching about stuff. That is my stinky hose. And my other sweaters. I have made a mess over here, so I'm going to clean it up and then we'll get on to the next one. This next one, I'm not sure how much I'm going to show about it on social media until it's ready to be tested, but here's what's happening. I decided I'm going to try this like make your own pattern sort of vibe. Meaning like a choose your own adventure knit with like giving you basic design skills for things. So we're going to start with a Guernsey because I think it's pretty easy to knit. And I know I will size this as unisex, but I know that a lot of like men have been asking me specifically for men's patterns. And while I think clothing doesn't have a gender and I don't size my stuff to either men's or women's, I think it's like a comfortable in between. I do want people to have the skills to be able to modify stuff themselves. And so like a simple drop shoulder like a Guernsey is a really good technique. And I think that they also lean more masculine and it's easy to modify and play with. So I want to make that type of garment. And that's where we're going with this knit, which is not very far right now. So I think that that's sort of my solution. Clothing doesn't have a gender. You can wear, knit, whatever you want. As long as it fits you the way it wants to fit, it's fine. It's whatever. So what I'm doing is I'm making a Guernsey. I want this to be approachable. I want it to be a gauge that people will knit it at, not like 3 millimeters and below needles. And I want it to have like a DK weight gauge is my favorite. So that's what we're doing it in. I've knit, this is my third DK weight sweater that I will be showing you. And I just want like the techniques in there that are like traditional, like a basic sort of Guernsey technique, because this will be proper Guernsey number 3 for me, but I've done some like Guernsey-ish sweaters. And so I want to give people like options of, a Channel Islands cast on, which I tried for this one, but it looked like an animal ate the cast on. So I did it a different way because it just wasn't working. If I have a picture, I'll show it up here. It was terrible. The tension was all off. I think it would be cute if you actually got it right, but it was not for me. So more sort of like traditional techniques, but without being so strict and making it more of an approachable pattern. So what is happening right now? I am not very far. I have done enough to get it off the needles. I have done ribbing. I did a 1x1 rib and for like, X amount. I have put my initials on the back, which is a typical Guernsey feature. So there's, a couple of traditional cast-ons. I did one of them. You'll have to see the pattern whenever it comes out to do it. I have the thing, I have just plain stockinette going on right now, and then there will be like a band and then moss stitch on top. And then I'll give you some options for the band and for the moss stitch so you can kind of make it your own. And it will have traditional techniques, so like the gusset and the 3-needle bind off, like the cast on, the cast off will be recommended traditional, and then I'll have some motifs that you can swap in and out. So it's pretty straightforward. If you want to get really fancy with it, you can like change what's in the band and like add a center panel or cables or something like that, but that's not going to be on the pattern. But it's sort of a, this is what you can do pattern to give people a little bit more encouragement while teaching these traditional techniques. That's the thought. So this is West Yorkshire Spinners. Ooh, I really pulled a stitch weird. What happened here? Anyway, this is West Yorkshire Spinners, the Croft DK. I'm in love with this. This is their Skelberry color, which this is a nice like Bordeaux-ish. Not really my color, but hear me out. I thought that this was the most beautiful of the Croft DK colors. I wanted this in a color because the traditional navy I have, I also think that that doesn't photograph well. And if I did it in black, it also wouldn't photograph well. If I'm trying to do this in a design, I want some sort of color that I think that I could get some contrast in. Also, I need a Christmas sweater. My previous Christmas sweater is just too small because it's been bulking up. And I needed something either green or red. I liked the red of this offering of yarn, so I chose the red instead of the green, and here we are. Another thing to talk about is I am using Chiaogoo carbon needles for the first time. My needles were occupied by my Stinky project. They aren't now, I've switched to short circulars, but I started both of these roughly at the same time. And so I didn't have any metal needles in 5 inches, and I couldn't find them. I went to my local yarn store, the Off Stop, which carries a bunch of Chiaogoo needles. They seem to be out everywhere. The metal ones seem to be out everywhere online. I could find something on Bowl. Oh, I bit my tongue. I could find something on Bowl, which is like the Dutch Amazon, and the only seller that was selling it was like Darren and like Belinda or something like that. It just didn't seem very legit. So I went on to some sort of reputable yarn website and I got the carbon ones of this. And these are usually sold as part of the Forte set. I have a full Chiaogoo set. Well, I have two. So I have the full set of the 5-inch tips, and I also have the blue mini ones, and then I have a bunch of extras because I knit a lot and I sometimes need needles and cables and stuff like that. So I've been using these. I really like these. These are much lighter than the metal needles. They have a little bit more friction to them than the metal, but that's fine because this is actually a little bit of a heavier DK, I would say. Did I tell you this stuff about this? I didn't. Let's go back to the yarn and then I'll finish talking about the needles. So this is the Croft DK in Skelberry. It is 225 meters or 246 yards per 10 centimeters, 4 inches. They recommend 22 by 28 stitches by rows, and it's good. So it's woolen spun, so it's a little bit warmer. This is all Shetland wool, but it doesn't feel as rough as most Shetland wools. I think this is a pretty soft Shetland wool. It's actually really quite affordable. I bought this at Ginger Twist Studio. I think it was like 10 pounds a skein. So like I got 7 because I want to do a lot of swatching of the motifs. And so I spent 70 euros for a sweater. That's pretty good. So West Yorkshire Spinners, the Croft DK, highly recommend. Anyway, I went with these needles. I like them. I think they're nice. It's a bit of a different hand feel. It takes a bit for me to get into them. I think I have better tension with the metal ones because I use them so much. But I think that these are ultimately easier on my wrists and hands. So that is the thought about that. I will do the whole body with these needles, and then I'll switch to my shorty Chiaogoos to do the things. Now, this is part of their Forte set, and that would come with the swivel cables and a couple of other things. I do not have a full Forte sweat set. These are interchangeable with my red lace. So I have my red lace. I don't have the swivel cables. I just am using the tips. So far so good. I actually really like them. And that is my review of that. Not very exciting right now, but we will get into that once it happens. I'm hoping for a tester call October-ish. If you want to set your knitting plans, I can probably, because this is pretty easy, I can finish knitting this, I think, pretty quickly if I don't get too distracted, and then we'll go from there. So yeah, this is all right. Also, this will be easy to grade, which is nice. Grading is usually what stops me from doing things. This will be nice. It will be harder to write than it will be to grade because of all the options. It will be a longer pattern with stories and stuff. Anyway, you'll see. It's fine. This is my Guernsey that doesn't really have much to show you. Let me sneeze and get the next project for you. Two things that we're talking about next. These are plans. I like people talking about plans, so I'm incorporating a little bit more of that into my knitting. One, I need a cardigan for work. If you have good cardigan suggestions without a shawl collar, no shawl collar, for men or for women, I'm open to whatever. I'm probably going to modify stuff anyway. Put them down in the links below. Send me links. I need cardigan ideas. I'm thinking what I might try to do is I have some Whole Super Soft in stash, and if I pair that with a lace weight, I don't want mohair, but I'm thinking like an Einbond, which is like Let Lopey or something. It's not like, it's Let Lopey, it's the same Isatex. It's the same brand. It has the same sort of like Icelandic feel. So if I do a lace weight plus the Holst, then I should be able to get a DK weight because I don't want to hold the Holst by itself. And then I can make a jumper out of that, and it's sort of like buying more yarn so I can use up the stuff in my stash. But anyway, so I'm thinking of a cardigan for work, which I need to do, probably black, something somewhat professional. I'm not looking for like super elaborate, but I'm also looking for something with some interest. What I wear the most is a Guernsey sort of thing where it's just solid color, but like overall texture. Like too much of a standout piece, I won't wear it, but if it's like overall texture, then I'm good. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I have a couple of ideas and I have a couple of yarns, and we'll marinate on this for a while. What I did do is I went to the Knaresborough train station in the UK in Yorkshire, and I found these knitting patterns for €1. And these are like vintage knitting patterns from the 60s and 70s, and I got all the male ones. So there's quite the glare. There's this one, which is like a honeycomb vest in worsted weight, which is a strong contender. And then there's this ribbed one, which I think is the strongest contender. This thing is like a tiny little pamphlet, so I mean it's going to be interesting. So I think that so far this is probably what I'm thinking, but I could be persuaded. I'm not sold on it just because it's a rib, but it's simple and all over. And then it would be interesting to follow a pattern that's old and figure it out. So I think that that's what would entertain me the most, but I'm open for suggestions. So put them down below. That's a potential future plan. These cost me €3. It really was like €1, £3. This really was £1 each. Crazy. I bought out all the men's patterns. It was great. Next, the Does Diamond Sweater. That is going to be my next big knit. It won't also be a raglan. It's going to be a texture thing. I've shown this about 12 times. Do I have the stuff here? No? Is it in this bag? Oh yeah. So this is my Does Diamond texture. I've used it on a couple of my designs. There's a hat, there's a cowl, and then the he, she, which is posted in Making Stories magazine, their latest winter issue, all have this design. It's fantastic. I'm obsessed with it. It's a all over 1x1 cable, and I want it all over my body. So that's what we're going to do. Now, what I have done with this is I was supposed to cast on last weekend, but okay. So my design process, I like these little notebooks, and it's just these like grids because I can like draw in them, and like I can either do color work or, you know, chart out some stuff, I think, pretty successfully. And so I have like one pattern in front, one pattern in the back, and I have a couple of these notebooks going for like as I'm working on stuff. So this is what I like to design with. I got these at like Bruna, which is like the news agent, and they were like, I don't know, €12 each, I think. It was super cheap. I actually really like them. This is my knitting notebook. Anyway, the pattern is this. So this is planning, you know, and I have this page, I have these pages with some diagrams and some like light, very light math, and I even have, no, that's it. So I have like 3 pages of very light math and some diagrams to help me visualize how I want to do it. It's going to be a top-down saddle shoulder into raglan, and the pattern is going to be all over with some stitches that like follow the lines of the saddle shoulder raglan. I'm going to have a gusset in there, and I'm going to do some twisted stitches. The thing with this is it's complicated. The stitch pattern for the 1x1 cables moves. So it sort of like goes like this, you know, back and then back and then back. And so the beginning of round is a little bit all over the place. In addition to that, I want the increases to be on the seam. So not within the pattern. Usually when you do something, you knit up until like one marker before that marks the raglan, let's say, and then you like make one, and then you do the raglan seam, and then you know, slip the marker, make one, and then you go from there. I'm going to be knitting up to that marker, and then I will be doing the increasing within the raglan. It's hard to explain. I also want to do the increase in such a way where it's always on a right side row. So I have all of the twisting stitches and the increases on one row, and then the next row is just knitting because it will be easier that way, which means I have to alter the shaping a little bit different than from the mass. And I want it to be so it doesn't have a stitch that's random in there. And what I mean by that is because the cable travels essentially like over a stitch each time you do the cable, like it would be like these 2 blocks and then these 2 blocks and then these 2 blocks sort of thing, that as I increase, I want it to have the increased stitch and then the 1x1 cable next to it, and not a knit stitch and then the 1x1 cable, if that makes sense. So it's very complicated. I don't even know if this is making any sense, but this is what's happening in my mind. So I also knew that if I put this down and I did not pick it up in the correct way, that I would lose my absolute mind and track of everywhere, and it's not going to work. So I've started charting the full back, and then I'm going to chart the sleeves so I know how long I can make the saddle shoulder for before I need to start increasing to get to the width of the underarm that I want, if that makes sense. So that's what I'm doing for this. So I'm in the process of charting the back. I will probably finish that tonight. I can chart the yoke of the sleeve. I'm only charting the yoke so far. So I'll chart the sleeve, and then I need to figure out the gusset, because the stockinette gauge and the other gauge are completely different. And these are about the same size, but this has like, I don't know, 10 more stitches. So when it comes to ribbing and stuff, we're gonna have a crazy time with the sweater. I have some thoughts. There's options, but we're not even there yet. So if I can just get it so I could do the chart for the sleeve yoke and the back yoke, I'll do some weird shaping. So I knit essentially like 2 inches, and then I can join in the round, but I'll do it flat first because I think that will add the most stability and it will make the garment better. We'll see. And then once that's done, I'm going to print it out and I'm going to go old school with it. And when I was an architectural technician, I think is what they call it, but like, you know, baby architects just do drawings the whole time. And it used to be that you mark them up with like red pen, they were called red lines, and then as you completed the stuff, you would highlight it. So what I'm going to do is print these charts out, and then I'm just gonna finish a line, highlight it, finish a line, highlight it, finish a line, highlight it. And that way I know exactly where I am in the pattern, and I'm not going to get confused, because this is also a difficult pattern to increase in without a chart. So the way that the increases, it was going to be crazy. Anyway, I think I've over explained it at this point and you guys aren't that interested, but like, it is complicated. I'm very excited to do it. I know I can do this. I just need to get like my feet underneath me before I do it. So not next episode, but the episode after, I'm casting on. But I got this yarn from Retrosarios. This is their Folclore. I think I've talked about this 1,000 times. I have 8 balls, which I'm hoping is enough because the stitch is a bit of a yarn eater. I would normally assume about 6 balls for a sweater my size. I got 8 just in case. This was gifted to me by Retrosarios for this project. It is a new yarn of theirs. It's out now. Highly recommend. It's hard to find good worsted weight black yarn. And this just shows texture well. It has like a good spin. It's not merino, so it's not gonna really like pill. It's just good old Portuguese wool. There's some really good sustainable practices around this yarn in terms of sourcing, spinning, dyeing, all that stuff. It is really small footprint. So that's also what I wanted to share about the Does Diamond Sweater. It's coming. It's coming, kids. It's gonna be a big one. It's also going to take forever, but I'm excited for it. I have talked too long, so let's wrap this up. Next video is going to be sock talk. I have been knitting socks. I've alluded to this. I don't find it particularly interesting to talk about, so I'm going to tell you about my great sock experiment in the next video. It's going to be the socks I knit, construction, the needles, what I find works for me, what doesn't, different, like how they wear, how it fits my foot, all of it. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned in 2 weeks for that video. I will give a wrap up. But if not, thank you for joining me. Thank you for sitting this one out. It was longer than I expected. Be kind to yourselves, be kind to others, and I will check you later. Goodbye.